profound philosophical questions.
Namaste, Guruji. Can the mind actually make a free choice, or is this merely the illusion of choosing? What is true choice?
That was earth-shattering.
Thank you.
You just need to say it. The question was, yeah, please do. So can the mind make any choice?
Right. And what is true choice?
Now there are various levels of the mind, and it's only the lower mind that thinks it makes a choice. One wants to go to New York, and the other one thought in the mind says, I want to go to San Francisco. Now, the lower phases of the mind would debate the point, weighing its pros and cons. But the very debate of the point, shall I go to New York or San Francisco, is not entirely dependent on the lower levels of the mind, because the lower level of the mind is only subjected to outward sensual input, which we had discussed during the week. So, that very thought, where shall I go, would go to deeper layers of the mind. And when it goes to deeper layers of the mind, to the chitta that we spoke about, there the pros and cons are weighed. It's like the plaintiff and the defendant fighting each other. And that is the conflict that is felt in the conscious level of the mind. Shall I or shall I not to be or not to be? Yet. But then it does not stop there. It still goes further to the memory box, and there it would try and find which was pleasurable the last time. Was New York more pleasurable, or was San Francisco more pleasurable? So these cases are presented in one section of the mind, and then it is sent to buddhi, which is the discriminative faculty, and there it is weighed further, and that very thought gets more and more refined. After this refining of the conflicting ideas, it goes to the ego self, that which you have created and which forms the totality of your mind. There the answer would come back via the usual channels from which it went there, and that will make you decide where you want to go to, either New York or San Francisco. And that is as far as modern psychology goes. Modern psychology will talk to you not only of the I-ness, the ego, but they will always also talk to you of the superego, which comes about through parental and environmental conditioning. But that is not enough. There's another factor involved in you making the choice. That factor is the energy of the inner self that energizes or vitalizes your thought processes. And that energy can be activated or it can be subdued by your conscious mind, and then you are left choiceless. So when we think that we are deciding, you are not deciding at all. with your conscious mind. This works very, very fast. You are not deciding with your conscious mind. The decision is already made there by the various forms of patternings in your mind. And it is the patternings in your mind that forces you to make a decision, to make a choice. So you are not actually deciding. The external factors such as influencing you. You meet a friend and he influences you that let's go and see this movie, and he'll say, oh no, it's not a nice movie, but the other one is better, so let us go there. So here, are you using your mind or are you using your friend's mind? You are being influenced. And in daily living, you're always subjected to outer influences. Your conscious mind is a very susceptible vehicle. It could be influenced in many, many ways. You sat down to breakfast this morning, and I'm sure you chose what seemed to you to be most palatable, or something which you have eaten before and which you have enjoyed. So your choice is dependent not only on outer circumstances, but also the inner circumstances, the inner mechanisms that are operating with you. So now, when you talk of choice, you naturally would mean free will. There is no such thing as free will in totalness. Free will operates only in a limited manner. Free will tell you that you go to Chicago either by a helicopter or a motor car or a donkey cart or an ox wagon or whatever. That's as far as your free will goes, which in reality is not a free will. That is also influenced by other circumstances. You want to get to Chicago in a hurry, so you'll take the helicopter. And you want to take all your time about it, then you choose an ox wagon. And then, of course, you study your pocket as well. Then the ox wagon would be cheaper than the helicopter. Right. So there, even in such a small matter, your free will, which you think is so free, plays a very small part. We are all on this earth or in this universe regulated by a pattern. And everything functions in a pattern. If you study the hemisphere, if you study the skies, you'll find the orbiting planets. You'll find the various stars in the galaxies and all. They're all working in a perfect precision. Everything is just perfect. That is why the newspapers could tell you when the sun is going to rise and what time the sun is going to set, because it is a pattern. So this pattern, where does this pattern come about? This pattern is what we call divine will. And divine will has to operate in a pattern in order to prevent chaos. Even when two planets crash, that is also part of a pattern. They had to crash to create other kinds of patterns. So man's will is very, very limited. Say, for example, you do not feel like having lunch today. There could be many reasons for that. Either you are not hungry, so you're influenced not having lunch because you're not hungry, or you might be having a tummy ache, or you might be fasting. So not eating lunch today is also not your choice. It is governed by other factors. And the most important thing which yoga psychology would teach you about is the sanskaras, the past impressions gathered over a long period of time, and which create in your daily living a particular kind of tendency. Now, what we are confronted with are tendencies which has created patterns within us. Now, these tendencies can definitely be modified. Like a river running in a certain direction, that is the tendency, but you can always brook it to run in a different direction. So there only lies the importance of your will, not necessarily free, but your will, which again is governed by other factors that go beyond the established tendencies. What are the other factors? The other factors is that divine will that we spoke about. A man has a nice job and he loses his job. Why did he lose it? Because he chose to lose it. He might not have chosen consciously, but there is an unconscious force that brings about, that attracts the conditions to him to lose that job. Yes. 99% of the world's people don't like their jobs. They don't. They get bored by it after a while, and they seek something else, and then after a while they get bored of that. Then they find a third job, and after a while they get bored of that. Where does this boredom come from? Does it come from your choice? No. It comes from your own personal mental conditioning. The man is an electronics engineer. When he comes into circumstances, he has to make a living, and he collects dustbins. Now his mind is geared to be that television or electronic engineer, but because of the circumstances forced upon him, he starts collecting dustbins from door to door. Now he does not like to collect dustbins, so the dislike of it is created first in his mind, and therefore, in spite of how well he does his job, he creates that emanation around him that would make him lose the job. You see? Two people apply for the same job. One is rejected, although he has better qualifications, and another is accepted, who has lesser qualifications. Now, people would call it personality. It's not the personality so much, but if you would include the emanation of the person in the personality, then you could call it that. But your very presence, your very being, influences, without you saying a word, the other person, which will make you, give you the job or reject you. So everything is so dependent upon our own minds. Now we think we use our minds, but we use a very small fraction of the mind. very small fraction, a bit of the left hemisphere of the brain. That's all that we use, the analytical side. And we think we are analyzing, but we are not. There are many billions of cells there in the left hemisphere of the brain which have been preconditioned, pre-programmed like a computer. And that is what is doing the job. Now what we forget is, or do not know how to use the right hemisphere of the brain, which is the intuitional side, which is connected to your higher self. And when the synaptic control is not working or functioning at its true value or at its fullest value, then naturally you would think that I am thinking and I am making a choice. So, through spiritual practices, when you awaken the right hemisphere of the brain, which is connected to your higher self, you will find the analytical left hemisphere will function in greater coordination of what you really need, and that is provided all the time. Because here, with the analytical portion of the mind, of the brain, which you think is choosing, call it choosing if you wish to, but if it is empowered through the right hemisphere with a greater synaptic control, where the electrons are flashing by, they jump from one to the other. They are not connected, but there's a total current that jumps over from one to the other. And there is a blockage there, created by your modes of thought. Now, these blockages through spiritual practices can be removed, where you can use the higher and higher levels of your mind. The best results in life are produced when you even go beyond the levels or the various facets of the mind. And just allow that inner self to function. They call it the inner voice, which could very easily be heard. Yes. A few months of real, regular and proper spiritual practices will allow you to use and hear that inner voice, and you cannot go wrong. Because if you go wrong, your mind goes into greater conflicts. And then you say, oh, I've chosen the wrong thing. You have not chosen the wrong thing, but you have allowed the wrong thing to happen to you. So, everything in life is a happening. It is a process. And in this process of life, it is a whole lot of happenings pierced together like in a necklace with a thread. So they seem connected to each other, yet each happening has its own particular identity. It is only when you put the thread through that the beads lose their identity, and you call it a necklace. You do not have your mind on the beads anymore. You'd say, oh, those are my beads. No, you'd say, that is my necklace. So when you can say that, then if you really can say that, then you'd find all the process of life become one. It assumes a totality. Because these beads alone, on their own, can do nothing. Most probably you'll lose them. But if they are connected up, systematically connected up, then life assumes a flow because of the connectedness of the various facets of your life. And when this connectedness comes about, fragmentation disappears. And it is only this fragmentation that makes you think you are choosing. You are not choosing. Apparently it appears to be a choice, but it is appearance. And there's a great difference between appearance and reality. Now, I do not say everything is an illusion, that one particular bead is real. But if the importance is put on that one particular bead, then life loses its flow, and when the flow is lost, you are not living. I say. So, what we have to do is to make life flow. And it has to flow naturally without choosing. Now, this does not mean you allow the tendencies within you through past karmas to play havoc with you. If you draw from that inner source, those karmas will not play havoc. Whatever you sow, you will reap. That is very true, but this operates on a much lower plane of existence, on a very, very small relative plane. But you can go beyond the sowing and the reaping. And the fruit would be there, without sowing and without reaping. What fruit will be there? The fruit of burning up the seeds of karma, which will leave your mind in a happy state, in a blissful state, in a joyful state. And is that not what you want? I've known so many, during business days, so many millionaires, very, very wealthy people, but I haven't found anyone happy. They all had problems. First, they had problems on how to make money, and then when they had a lot of money, they had more problems in how to look after the money. And then, of course, they would think of the tax man. One day a fellow fell down on the railway tracks, and everyone, on the platform, the train line platform, pushed their hands out. They says, "Give me your hand." We pull you out. "Give me your hand. Give me your hand." So Mullah Nasruddin passes by. He says, "Wait a minute. I'll show you how to do it." So Mullah Nasruddin says, "Take my hand." And the man was pulled out. So a taxman does not like to give. He likes to take. So those millionaires have their problems because they can give, which they really don't like to. Good. So happiness, joy stems from within. And the choices that are made for you by divine will always produce happy results. Because divinity itself is nothing but joy. It is we that distort that joy and make ourselves miserable. So therefore we say, "Not my will, let thy will be done." And who is that thy? That Thy is your real inner self. Now, if you tap those resources and say, Thy will be done, you are bringing forth through the various facets of your mind to your physical bodies that joy where every cell of your body is permeated by that joyousness. And when you have that joyousness, why do you want to make a choice? I see. If your end and aim of life is to experience joy, and joy means no conflicts, then you do not need to make a choice. You make a choice only because of conflicts in the mind. If there were no conflicts, you do not need to make a choice at all. No choice. You go down the road this evening or tomorrow when you leave from here, and you pass the restaurants. Now you make a choice. Is this a good one, or is that a good one, or is that a good one? So you pop into a fancy one, and the food there might not be good at all. How valuable is your choice? Meanwhile, you have passed another restaurant, which is not so fancy looking, but the food is good. So, choices at most times do not work out because the choices that you think you make are only made on the surface value of the mind, combined with, of course, the experiences that you have had or the external influences that would help you make the choice which you think is right. It might not be right. But if one lives a life of surrender by tapping the inner resources we have, let thy will be done. And you see that you will always be influenced by doing the right thing without even choosing to do it. Person says, I choose not to eat meat, for example. Or I choose not to smoke, or I choose not to drink. What is the worth of that? No worth at all. Because you are only suppressing a particular desire that is within you. And by suppressing that desire, you're creating repressions, inhibitions, which has to manifest itself in some other form or the other. The better way would be to draw upon one's inner sources and phase out the thing which you do not like. So you smoke 20 cigarettes a day. The next day you try 19 and then 18, and slowly you repattern your mind. You repattern your mind. That is, this is doing me no good. And by having those thoughts, your mind is repatterned where you do not feel to have a cigarette anymore. But if you just cut it off, I decide I'm not going to smoke. I've spoken to people who have given up smoking for 2 years or more, and still they tell me they do have some craving sometimes for a cigarette. So this means that the patterning is still there. The patterning has not been altered. Because you have decided to superimpose a different pattern on the old pattern, which is impossible. The old pattern has to be pushed out by the new pattern, and not the new pattern to be superimposed upon the old pattern. It's like weeding your garden. It's no sense just cutting off the weeds of the lawn on top. You take out the whole root. And man is not always strong enough to do that. So you rely on that inner force, that inner power that is within you to annihilate that pattern and replace it with a pattern more conducive to your life. We were talking of jobs just now, and I said that most people are always thinking of changing the job. They're not happy. I would say, do not change the job, change yourself. And by changing yourself, you will like the job, because a job is a job. And as a matter of fact, a street sweeper does greater service than a doctor. A doctor only tries to cure the disease, but the street sweeper with his sanitation prevents the disease. So to me, the street sweeper is even more important than a doctor. Yes. So whatever one is doing, you do not need to choose. Whatever one is doing, do it well. I met a shoemaker one day. You know, especially in India, they do have the ready-made shoes now, but in my days, you used to go to a shoemaker, you put your foot down on a piece of paper, and he takes a pencil and draws a line around it. That's your size, and the shape, and the fitting. And he makes shoes. I went to him once for a pair of shoes. He made it, and we were talking. Highly intelligent person. And he says, how can I become enlightened? I said, the way is very, very easy. The pair of shoes that you are busy making, make it to such perfection. And if you have made it to total perfection, you will reach the higher levels of your consciousness. Because in perfecting that pair of shoes, you'll be pouring everything that you are into those shoes. You see? So therefore, choose wherever it is necessary, but that choice, although how mundane it will be or is, would definitely be influenced by so many other factors of which you are not conscious, such as karmas, sanskaras, tendencies, impressions, the id, the super ego, the ego. But yet beyond that is a vast unified field, and so unified that no choice is necessary. But in daily living, you have to make certain choices. Do you think you came to this course and you chose to come? No. You never chose to come. You thought only that I'm going to the course, but you never chose. There's a difference between thinking and choosing. Choosing would mean making a 100% thorough decision. Thinking is something different. I think I will go, and that thinking is put into action. So thought and action made you come to the course, and not by your choosing, but a higher power dragged you along or pushed you here. I have some people here sitting in the audience that till the last minute, the very day of the course, they were not sure of coming. And they are, because their mind, their thoughts were on it all the time. Circumstances just became conducive for them to come. And of course, the iron filings do get attracted to the magnet. the great magnet. 45 minutes go so fast, doesn't it? Any questions you'd like to ask on this subject? There'd have to be short answers. Time factor.
Can we choose to accept thy will?
Beautiful. No, you cannot choose to accept thy will, but you can make yourself conducive, so thy will operate on its own. In other words, it's like a gardener tilling the field, fertilizing it and what have you. When you plant the seed thought, and it is his will that brings together all the minerals and the light and the air and the sun to make the flower grow. You do not make the flower grow, but you prepare the garden for it. It's like calling butterflies to your garden. They don't come, but plant beautiful flowers there. Make the garden beautiful, and those beautiful butterflies will come on their own. Yes. Next. While we are waiting for questions, the baby broom, do you call it a broom here? Broom that you sweep with? You call it a broom in America? Mm-hmm. So the baby broom was with the... After you're ready. Okay. So the baby broom was in the closet to the mother broom. And the baby broom asks, how did I come about? So the mother oohed and ahed and tried to avoid the question, because the baby broom would not understand about birds and bees. Nevertheless, so one day, the mother broom, the child was very persistent, the baby broom was. So one day the mother says, okay, I'll tell you. You see, your father and I, one night, swept together. But then the father broom was just passing by the closet. And the father broom says, that's nothing, son. I did it standing on my head. This drunk was trying to get into his car. So a policeman comes by and he says, sir, I don't think you are in a condition to drive the car. So the drunk says, of course I'm going to drive the car. I'm in no condition to walk.
Okay, Guruji, I guess I know I'm missing something. You say you talked about a job and say you don't like your job. You say, well, don't change the job, change yourself. So then you try to change yourself, and in that process, you feel like you're repressing something. Do you know what I mean? Like in the process of trying to be different.
You don't try to be different. You become different without trying. Now, this is how it works, where through spiritual practices, you become a much more gentler person. You become a much more loving person, a more kind person, compassionate person, and you start radiating an aura, as the occultists call it. You start radiating that inner force from yourself, and the people that work with you like you. They start liking you more and more and make your life more easier in your work. Now, through studies, we have found one thing when it comes to jobs and job stresses and things like that a person's job is made unhappy mostly 95% of the time by the people they work with, not the job itself. Because if you have the job and you've got it for a few years, you are qualified to do the job. That is why the boss keeps you on. But the people around you, they make your life miserable. You see, so if you change yourself, you change those around you. Like my usual analogy, that it's the nature of the flower to be beautiful, but that's not the only thing it does. It enhances the beauty of the garden. So you would be helping them. Your office is not so nice, it could just be a cubby hole. So what's wrong with a cubby hole? Why must it be full of grandeur and pot plants and all kinds of things around? Not necessary. You're not there. And believe you me, they move you into a beautiful office, and after 2 or 3 weeks, you will not notice the office anymore. You'll be tied up with your work at the desk. You buy a new car. You'll enjoy it. Oh, my car, new car, beautiful Cadillac. You're driving. But in 3 weeks' time, it will just be another car as an ordinary car. You see. So one, without choosing, by altering one's inner self, you adapt yourself to any kind of circumstance. I love the job. Bless you. You know, I took my suit to the tailor. America's a funny place. I took my suit to the tailor this morning, and he says if you don't pick it up by 1 o'clock, we'll charge you 1 day extra for having it there longer. They even charge you storage, don't they? Like at this place here. If you stay here till after 12 on checkout day, you're going to pay for a day extra. Funny, isn't it? Next question. Oh yes, and this other drunk was staggering there along the road, and the policeman stopped him. And he says, "Where are you going, sir?" So he says, "Where am I now?" He says, "You're on the corner of Brown and Blue Streets." So the drunk says, "Oh, forget the details. Tell me which town I'm in." And of course, Mullah Nasruddin came into a lot of money. So they told him, 4 minutes to 1, they told him that, look, go and see a mannequin show. So he went to this mannequin show. So when he came out, his friends asked him, "Did you like it?" He says, "It's a total swindle," says Mullah Nasruddin. "It's a total swindle." So the friend asks why. He says, "They show you these pretty women, then they try to sell you clothes." Any more questions? We've still got a few minutes. Well, another joke then. I believe football is a very popular game. What do you call it, football? Football? Is that the word used here? And you have thousands of people going to watch the football match. 50,000, 70,000, 100,000 people go to watch the match. And this one fellow was trying to buy a ticket from a tout just to be able to get in because it was full. So he meets Nasruddin there, And so he tells Nasser, no, this is just terrible, it's driving me crazy, I can't get a ticket. He says, you should have been here last week. So this fellow says, was it worse? He says, no, it was better last week. There was not a soul in sight because last week they had no football match. Well,
Question, Guruji. I love my office and I go to love it more, and I love my job too. And of course what popped into my mind then is, am I clinging? Am I hanging on?
If you love it, you're not hanging on. If you love your job, you're not hanging on to your job, but the job is hanging on to you. Because you love your job, you love your office, you feel you're hanging on to it. But you are not hanging on to your job in spite of the pleasure it provides you. It is the job actually that is hanging on to you and creating the love in you for it. Well, good. Oh yes, come. Yeah. When you say about yes and no, this man was taken to court, and the lawyer says, please, I don't want long explanations, I just want yes or no. So the question was this: do you still beat your wife? If he said no, he would admit that he used to. If he says yes, that means he's still beating. Right.
Just going back to Meryl's question about accepting God's will. Does that mean then that acceptance is a gift?
That God does not give gifts at all. The gift is forever there, and by gift I would mean a grace. It is forever there just for you to grab. Who is God to give you a gift? Who are you so special that he gives one a gift and another one not? So the grace you receive is to equal measure of your surrender to the divine will. You become deserving of what you receive. You don't receive first and then deserve. Good. On every course, what we normally have is a session of rapid-fire question and answers, because on one question I'll speak an hour, and many people might have so many different questions in mind. So what we'll do tomorrow morning, will that suit us? Tomorrow morning we'll have a rapid-fire question and answer, so everyone has a chance to ask any question they like, and they don't need to be philosophical or anything. Any ordinary question on how to make pea soup or lemon pie or anything. The Journal of Experiences.
We already mentioned it. It's just if you wanted to say anything else about it.
Mm-hmm. You see, well, what would be very nice, starting from tonight, and as you know, tonight we've got a midnight date. I'm going to visit each and every one of you at the stroke of 12. You start meditating 15 minutes before that, till about 12:15. And I won't tell you what experiences you will have, because as I said yesterday, I don't want to influence your minds. You tell me about them. So if you have, say, an exercise book, a book like that or something, keep a margin where I can make notes and write down your experiences. And I know people of some countries are very verbose. They take 2 pages to write 1 sentence. So try and be short as possible. And in that margin, I will make notes for you. You know what those experiences are about. So make it a daily thing. It's a good practice also. And it also adds on to your Guru Shakti. Yes, so have that. And when I come on the next course, hand them to me and or post them to me, whatever. It's better if you hand them to me here, then I'll do it on the spot. I can tell you, this is this, that's that, that's that, that's that. And this was 2 minus 1, you've got 1 left. Ah, that's a 3. So that's 4, you know. And then sometimes there are minuses, pluses, minuses, pluses. I want to see a credit balance. Your bank statement of life must not be in the red, must be in the black. Thank you.